Hello and welcome to Ginge Prints. Now today I want to show you the fishing lure that I've been thinking of 3D printing. Now I've seen on the internet there's been quite a few people that have actually managed to 3D print their own lures, and I just wanted to have a little go at that. I'm a keen angler myself. I like to get out on the bank and fish as much as possible, but I don't want to keep paying out for lures that cost an absolute fortune that I know at some point I am going to lose. So I want to find a way of actually making my own lures, whether they be 3D printed or actually injection molded using a soft plastic material. One of these ways I want to get into it and actually make it myself. So I thought I'd 3D print a couple of models just so I can get a few molds ready that I can actually use for the soft plastic molding, and also just so I can just mess around with different designs just to see how they react in the water. I will not be painting this in this video. If you do want to see how I airbrush my lures and actually get them painted, then drop a comment down below and let me know that you want me to do that, and I'll do a future video for you. But in this video, all I wanted to show you is how I sort of designed my own little model, 3D printed it and actually weighted it and tested it. So here you can see I'm going with in the UK we've got a fish called a roach. It's a bait fish, schooling fish, and that's the sort of shape and imitation I wanted to go for. So they've got quite a high body, they're quite a small fish. This lure is only about 8 centimeters, 9 centimeters in length in total. It's not a big lure. I don't like to fish with large lures generally, so I wanted to make something that was fairly small. But here you can see I've sort of sketched out all the details. I've got the eye and the gill pattern. Here I'm just putting in a lateral line just to give the fish a little bit more realism. You can see I do that all the way down the body, all the way to the tail. It's a little bit more pronounced than what an actual line would be on a fish, but I just wanted to add it just to sort of make that feature a little bit bigger, just to highlight a little bit more, just to make it look a little bit more realistic. And as you can see, overall this is how the lures turned out. I made it in two halves rather, just because I do need to add some weight into this, and I also need to make some hook ties and also the line tie. Now the way I'm going to do this is I'm literally just going to mark out an area where I want the line tie to be. Now these are quite shallow. I'm not actually going to be using this lure for fishing. I need to order some proper line ties and hook ties, so for now I'm just going to make small little indents in this actual lure that I can put some homemade ones in, but I'm actually going to order some proper heavy duty ones in the future. So here I'm just making the line tie at the front, and the reason I've made this circle with the actual little channel there is because I want to try and make it a little bit more sturdy in that end bit there where I put the line tie, just to give it something to hold on to, so I can fill it with a little bit more glue and just to make that a little bit more structurally sound. But in real life what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to be using micro swivels in this. And then what that micro swivel will allow is it will just allow the hooks to pivot a little bit more, and also the line tie as well will just allow that to move. But that will be in a future video. If you want to see that, then drop a comment down below and I will get that video up as well. I also wanted to make sure this lined up perfectly, so you saw I made two little holes there in the middle, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to make two little pins that I'm going to put in there just so that this bait lines up perfectly, so I don't have to guess when I do glue it all together. And here also you can see the long channel. That's where I'm going to be putting some weight in, just to make the lure weighted, just to give it a little bit of sinking motion and a little bit more action. So I took it over to my slicer. I always use Astro Print because that's the easiest for my iPad. And here you can see my general settings I normally use. I'm going to leave the shell, I believe. I'm going to make the shell slightly bigger, just because I need it to have that little bit extra strength around the outside. The infill I'm going to leave as normal. The temperatures I normally print around 230 to 235, just because I want this to have a bit more structure, if you like. And I feel like if you print something at a higher temperature, you just get them layers to stick together that little bit better. It just makes the whole thing that little bit stronger. The heat bed I'm going to do at 65 degrees, just because I don't want this peeling up. I will be using a build plate adhesion. I'm going to be using the brim just because that's my favourite way of sticking anything down. It's a little bit harder to clean up at the end of the print, but I prefer this method just because it is a little bit more structurally stable stuck to that bed. I actually use a glass plate on my printer just because I found that that's what I get the best results from. So I was using the original magnetic plate that came with the ender that I use. But but I just weren't overall satisfied with it, and I find it a little bit harder just to gauge the distance from the plate to the nozzle, so I just switched to a pane of glass. But here you can see where it's all going to be laid out. You can see all the different layers. You can see that dorsal line all the way down the middle there. I really like the way that came out, to be honest. And you can see when I finally managed to get the layers to go down, you can see it's quite a sparse fill. I didn't fill it too much, and that's because I wanted this to have some air in it, just so it makes it a little bit buoyant standing upright. I didn't want it all to sink, because this plastic, if you create a solid piece of it, it will actually sink, so I needed to create an air pocket. So this is the actual lure printing. I believe it took just over 3 hours to print, or just under 3 hours rather. I still need to learn how to do these time lapses, so if anyone knows how to do these time lapses on a 3D printer, then please let me know. I've done a load of Googling, I just can't find anything for the Ender printer, so please let me know if you can do it. But this is how it turned out. You can see the brim around the outside. That just helps secure it down. And if you look at the actual thing, it's got like a scale texture to the actual lure on the outside, and that's just from where the printer has gone backwards and forwards to the nozzle, which I think just adds to that a little bit more. You can also see there's a little bit of cleanup that I need to do. There's a few little marks on the outside, and on the line and hook ties here you can see that little channel there sort of closed up a little bit during printing, and I think that's where I've just printed at a higher temperature. It's just sort of melted that plastic a little bit more, but it's easy to clean up. I literally just take a knife, and I'm just clearing that channel out there so I can actually get that hook tie and line ties in. And also along the outside you see these little bits of plastic that are stuck on there. They come off really easy with a knife. You don't ruin the actual lure or the model that you're using. They just they chip off very easily. And I just went around the whole outside doing this. And also the little pegs here, where they do have that little brim that secures them to the plate, they have like a little lip at their bottom, so you just need to take them off. But here, this is how the little pegs go. They just go into them little holes there, and that just ensures that the lure lines up perfectly. All this will be glued together eventually as well, just because I don't want this to come apart. In the future, when I paint this, I will be putting a couple of layers of epoxy over the whole thing as like a clear coat, just to make sure that it all sort of stays together in one piece, and also so that the paintwork doesn't get chipped and scratched, so it stays nicer for longer, just makes it a little bit more durable. But these pegs will be glued in place. You can see how they go in. They sort of snap in quite snugly, which is what I wanted. I didn't want it too loose. When the other side of this actually goes on, you can see it snaps together. Now, where this was on the build plate, I sort of left it a little bit longer than I should, and it's sort of bowed in the middle, so you can see as I squeeze it together, there is like that slight gap at the top there. But overall, I think the quality of the lures come out absolutely brilliant. I'm really happy with the way the gill plates come out. I'm really happy with the shape and the size. But yeah, once I get this glued together and get it clamped together, this gap will soon disappear, and it won't be an issue. And here you can see the hole for the line tie that's come out, and then we've got the bottom hook hanger that's just on the belly, and then the rear hook hanger that's going to go on the tail end. So these are the little makeshift hook hangers and the line hanger that I've made, and it's literally just some small steel gauge wire, and all I've done is put these in a drill, put them around a little pin, and then I've just tightened the drill down. I have used these before, but a lot longer. They go sort of 10 to 20 millimeters into the actual bait, just so it makes it a little bit sturdy. But as I said, I'm not actually going to use this one for fishing. This is just a prototype to see how it would come out. But this is how I would fix the hook and tie hangers in place, just with some glue, and that would be perfectly strong enough to withstand any fish, providing they would be a little bit longer. I will be switching these out for swivels in my next build, just because I thought the swivels would give the hooks and the line a little bit more freedom to move, so you get a little bit more action in the actual lure itself. But I'm just gluing in the rear hook hanger here, and to be honest, I think even if I was to use this, I think these would be strong enough to hold, just because I'll be putting a lot of glue on the inside of this as well. Now for weight, I've got some steel gauge wire here. I'll probably be using lead shot in the future, but I didn't have any to hand at this point, so I've just used some thick wire here, and to be honest, this stuff weighs an absolute ton, so I feel like this is going to be just enough to make that lure slowly sink. So after I got it all glued together, I had it clamped up just so that the gap in the top there would seal together, and you can see that it's sealed together perfectly. All the hook hangers are in. They're pretty stable, to be honest. I did have a little tug on them just to make sure they stayed in place, But yeah, they're absolutely solid. If we zoom into the lure, we can actually see the finish on the overall thing is actually really nice. It's got like a zigzag pattern which does resemble scales. Now for the hooks, I don't have any hooks to actually fit this because the split rings that I normally use, they haven't been delivered, so I can't put any hooks on this for now. And plus I'm going to be testing this in my pool as well, just so you can see the action. So I'm just going to put this metal in place just so you can see where the hooks would be, and it just simulates the weight. And also you saw me shaking it there with that metal on the inside. It has actually got like a little rattle on the inside as well, which is just going to add extra features. When you're drawing this lure back through the water, it's just going to have that little bit of a noise, a little bit more of a traction. But yeah, the overall finish on this has come out perfect. As I said, this printer is spot on. So we took it out to the pool and gave it a few little jerks. Now this sort of lure, because it's very flat and streamlined, it's not going to have a great deal of action on a straight retrieve. You can see here I'm sort of jerking it back, trying to impart a little bit of motion onto the actual lure. If I was to do a straight retrieve, it will literally just come straight back in a straight line, which I don't mind. Sometimes you want that sort of action. As you can see here, it does have a slight shimmy. It's very hard to see, but for the most part it does come back in a straight line. But if you do work the lure, give it a jerk, fast retrieve, and then stop, you'll see it will actually put a little bit of movement in. And to me, I think that's ideal for this lure that I've made. It sort of resembles a fish that's sort of struggling, and it's sort of dying, as it would. So it sort of has a little dart, sinks down, a little dart, and sinks down, as you can see here. So that's the build finished. I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. If there's something you want to see me design, drop it in the comments below. Anything you can think of, as long as it will fit on my printer, I'll print it and post it. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next design.